Our problem, we could say, is that we're in too much of a hurry. We're in too much of a damn hurry because we want to skip ahead and do the fun stuff, to do the stuff, rather than sitting around learning something first. So this is particularly true in the field of mental health because we're in a real rush. We're really, really hasty. We see the need to do something, but it never occurs to me that there's an awful lot of learning to happen first before we can go ahead and do it. And undoubtedly, there are lots of reasons why that should be the case. Jung talks about the field of pedagogy, and he comes out with the same kind of thing, really. He says that there's this type of tendency for those of us who are involved, not all of us, but a lot of people who are involved in the field of pedagogy, teaching, to run ahead and teach stuff. Like we can't wait. Now, the only problem is, according to Jung, is that our desire, our urge to run ahead and teach isn't coming from a good place. It's coming from the fact that we don't know anything. So we've got it backwards. Rather than learning what we need to learn, we want to teach it to other people even though we don't know it ourselves. So that's what Jung said about teachers. Maybe he didn't have a good experience with teachers. He didn't, according to his autobiography. But I'm not saying it's just a matter of personal bias on Jung's part. This is it's an easy thing to understand. What we have to understand, what we have to learn in life is really hard and not pleasant. So we'd much rather kind of kid on to ourselves that we know it already and then run on to the rest of it, which is like actually living life. Unfortunately, very obviously, if I wanted to be a teacher and I'm in a great hurry to do this, and my urge to be a teacher is somehow a displacement of my fear of actually learning anything, then obviously that's not a good idea. Similarly, in mental health, generally, there is this kind of a there is this kind of a thing where we want to eat the icing of the cake first. We want to do the nice thing first. We don't want to do the preparation. And the preparation is not a glamorous thing. It's not a fun thing. It doesn't involve any clear directions that we can head down and collect tokens on the way to show how well we're doing. It's nothing like that at all. There's no clear-cut directions. There's no one going to validate us for doing the right thing. We're just going to be stewing in our own personal, subjective confusion and pain, basically, which is a perfectly good way of putting it. So it's not fun and it's not glamorous, and it's embarrassing because we can't kid on that we know what it's all about or that we're getting on with it or anything like that. So really what I'm talking about is the necessity to encounter the shadow. In more abstract terms, we can say that whenever we make an assumption and then bury that assumption and proceed on the basis that, of course, the assumption was correct, why wouldn't it be? Then we jinx ourselves. We create a perfect jinx for ourselves. The reason for that being that we're stuck with a system, and we can no longer see that system, that there's anything wrong with it, because we've buried the assumptions that go into making that system. And it's more important than anything else never to question those assumptions, because that means going back into the crap of all the chaos and the suffering and the hopelessness and all of that. We'd much rather have a road to go down. The only problem being that it's a road that goes nowhere. because we've jinxed ourselves. We've created an oversimplistic picture of what it's about and how to proceed in this paradigm. And we've gained that supposed pseudo clarity at the price of bearing a big fat assumption. Now, if we could see that there's something wrong with the system that we've got going, that would be fine. But we can't. We've denied ourselves that privilege because we don't want to see that there's anything wrong with the system, because then we'd have to go back to the drawing board. So because we've denied that, we're stuck in this perfectly ridiculous situation where no matter what we do, it's not going to do any good at all, and it's all just time wasting, it's all just red herrings, it's all just doing for the sake of doing for the sake of creating a theatrical impression that there is some point to the doing, or it's actually working in some way. And if the light starts to dawn a bit and we do start to see that this isn't working, even then we don't see the fault where it's due, which is in our crappy system. We internalize the jinx and we say, oh, I'm a jinxed person. Things aren't ever going to work out for me. And although someone might come along and say, why wouldn't they? You're a person the same as any other person. Of course they'll work out for you. And that sounds very plausible to them anyway. Far more plausible on a deeper level is my awareness that, yes, I am jinxed. I'm the kind of person that things aren't just going to work out for. So here again, instead of seeing that the system itself is wrong, we see ourselves as being wrong instead. So that's true for whatever approach in mental health we might be taking. It's true for society in general. So society is kind of a thing, and it says, if you do what I say, you'll grow, you'll develop, you'll have a meaningful and fulfilling life, etc., etc. Now, we all know society says this. Of course, society says it to us all the time in various veiled or not so veiled ways. And that's exciting. I think, yeah, that's great. What am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do with my life? What direction am I going to go in? And then if it works, if it doesn't work out that I do have a meaningful life, and I think it's fair enough to say that there's no such thing as a meaningful life when we're adapted to the social system in a passive kind of way, because we're not being who we are, we're letting the system define us, and so we're abdicating the most essential thing of all, which is to be who we actually are. So absolutely that's a lie. If we buy into society and do what society says we should be doing for our own good, then it's not going to work out for us, because we're not going to have a meaningful life. We can't have a meaningful life because there's no one there to lead a meaningful life, just this kind of generic idea of who I am, which is what I have to run with and do exciting stuff with, etc. And as long as I'm unwilling to see that the setup, the system, is wrong, in other words, it can't be believed at all. It's like working out that someone is a total charlatan, a total hypocrite, a total liar. We can work that out about a person, and then we know. It doesn't mean that we have to get all antsy about it. You just know that they're a liar, and that's fair enough. You just smile at them and say, how you doing? How you going? How's things going for you? How you getting on? We don't have to get cross with them. We just see that they're a liar. That's all that's needed. But we don't want to see that about society, and so we're jinxed, because we keep on having to try, knocking on all the doors, trying out all the various options. And when it doesn't work out for us, then it must be our fault. We have to internalize the blame. That's not society's fault. We've jinxed ourselves by doing this, by bearing a big fat assumption. The big fat assumption in this case being that it's possible to live a meaningful life on the basis of who society says we are, or on the basis of what society says life is. Society just meaning a thing that we all agree together for the sake of convenience. Like we all agree on it because we have to have a basic framework. We don't agree on it because it's true. There's no such thing as an agreed upon truth. Anything that's agreed upon is a lie. We're selling ourselves short straight away. That's how things are. Only the individual can see the truth. Maybe the individual will see a different truth to some other individual, but only the individual can see the truth. If I try and pass on my truth to other people, it's no longer true. It's certainly not true for them, and it's no longer true for me either, because I've somehow made it into a fixture. Only the individual can see the truth, but that doesn't mean that the individual can say what that truth is. That's a different thing entirely. We can't say what it is because it's a movement, not a static fixture. But when we get together and for the sake of convenience, not for the sake of honouring truth, agree what it is, whatever it is, but we're saying what it is, then we've just created a collusion. We've created a false reality. So once we see that, we can see that humans are very, very, very good indeed at creating false realities. Whenever two or more people will gather, bingo. If we form a group rather than remaining individuals, then we will create a false reality. The thing about a false reality is we have to punish people who don't believe in it because it's not believable anyway. So then that brings us into the territory of religion, and dogmatic religion particularly. But to come back to the topic at hand, which is kind of therapy, or what to do when we're caught up in acute ongoing mental distress. Now the illusion that the collective of us promotes is that there is a right thing to do in such circumstances. Now maybe then we go on from there to meet the expert who's going to tell us what that right thing is. Presumably that's the next stop. But that is an illusion, because that right thing, the right thing to do, is just an artifact of the collusion. It's not a right thing at all. It's just part of the collusion, which is necessarily not true, because all agreements are necessarily not true when it comes to reality. When it comes to other things, maybe not. That doesn't really count. We can agree on how many kittens the mother cat has given birth to. That's fine, but we're not talking. But when we go a little bit deeper into the nature of reality itself, then we can't agree. We shouldn't agree. We shouldn't want to agree. We shouldn't try to get people to agree with us, because it'll make what I believe in, or what it'll make the reality I perceive become false, and it'll make the reality that you agree to go along with also false. That's just no good at all. So the basic point is that there is no right thing to do. There is absolutely no right thing to do. If only we could see that, it would take such a weight off our shoulders. It would free us. It would free us because we would no longer be jinxed by having to find salvation on via a particular jinx system, which is never going to get us anything. Last of all, salvation. We desperately hope and think and believe that there is a right thing to do, but this doesn't work out for us, because when we don't hit upon the right thing, then we don't think, well, Western rational culture is deluded. We think there's something wrong with me. There's something particularly wrong with me that I'm not able to do the thing that would make me better, because we're jinxed and we can't question the setup that we've created. And that's a very, very simple point. There is no right thing to do. Imagine the pain and the torment of trying to think what the right thing to do is, but not knowing it, or with with hindsight, thinking if only I had known the right thing or had done the right thing, then I wouldn't have to go through all this pain that I'm going through now. And that really is this whole business of life choices that people go on about a lot. So life choices is really just a jinx. It's part of the jinx that we're all in. No matter how screwed up things get, I can always say to myself, well, I made the wrong life choices, implying that the framework within which I'm living my life is right. It's just me that's wrong. So in that sense, because that's what the collective says to me, that's what society says to me, or maybe some other type of collective, that's an abusive relationship because I'm wrong no matter what, when actually it's the system that's wrong. The system is always going to be wrong because it's a collusion. It's a shortcut to reality, or kind of something we agreed for the sake of convenience that will be reality, and that becomes a tyrant. So here's me in a relationship with this system, and it's an abusive relationship because no matter what I do, I'm going to lose. And what's more, I can't see it as being the fault of the system. I always have to see it as being my fault. There always has to be this victim blaming going on. And can we really put our hands in our hearts and say that kind of thing doesn't go on in mental health? Well, we can definitely say it doesn't go on in mental health, but we can't honestly say it. Not really. Because our conception of mental health is tainted by this same collective thinking that infects everything else. Not once have we got to the point of actually questioning collective thinking. Collective thinking has got to provide the answers, we think. But we don't really think it, because if we thought about it ourselves, we might think, hang on, I smell a rat. We don't think it, the collective thinking thinks it for us and we buy into it. So we always come to the same point in this little argument, and that point is that there's no thing we can do to help ourselves. There's no right thing. There's no deliberate thing, socially prescribed thing, officially prescribed thing. So what is there then? And the answer to this is, well, to do the wrong thing, to do whatever it is that we do, because everything's a wrong thing, really, so we might as well do the wrong thing that's true for us. And then we might be able to learn from it. So instead of putting the pressure on ourselves to behave in a way that is above ourselves or better than ourselves, which we can never do that. We can never operate from a level that's better than we are, a level of wisdom that's greater than the wisdom we have. We can never do that. We can only operate out of the level of wisdom, or rather not wisdom, that we already have. And then we're being authentic and we're being true to ourselves, and then this learning is possible on that basis. Because we're not playing a ridiculous game. And the stand-up comedian Veer Das says something like that in one of his talks that I came across about racism. He was saying that the current climate is to shame people into never saying anything racist. So no matter how racist we might be, we certainly won't be saying it. Anything slip out that's like that. So Veer Das says that ain't going to work. That if whatever stupid shit is in your head, say it. Don't be too afraid to say it. And then once you've said it, don't ever say it again, but you need to say it the first time. This is a very different approach to saying that, to us all going around being totally frightened of making fools of ourselves or making racists of ourselves or whatever else it is, whatever other politically incorrect thing it is, we're totally afraid. And there's a reason for us being afraid, because we'll be attacked and pilloried as a result of it, because that's the way things are, which means we have to pretend to be non-racist. And it doesn't work because there's a racist stuck in us anyway, no matter how good we are at pretending. Jordan Peterson says the same thing. He says, don't be afraid of saying really, really stupid, embarrassing stuff. Because if you don't ever say it, because it's true for you, it may be stupid and embarrassing, and you will but it's true for you in the sense that it's what you want to say. So go ahead and say it. Now, at the moment of saying it, and more particularly the moment of other people hearing you say it, quite possibly there's going to be a flash, and we'll realise how totally stupid and embarrassing it is, and we'll feel that intense feeling of, oh my God, did I just say that? That's a really good thing, because if we do feel that, if we do feel the pain of saying, if I feel the pain of saying what a god awful jerk I am, that is so healthy, that is so good, because after feeling that pain, I'll never be quite the same jerk. Not quite. We all hate being devalidated. Man, you're devalidating me, we say, or something like that. But the point is that what the universe or what life does to us is so helpful, precisely because it'll devalidate the hell out of us and leave us without an inch of validation left. The universe will always do that. So our job isn't to do the right thing. Our job is to be the type of stupid idiot that we are anyway. Be happy about it. Own it. And then let the universe devalidate you. So the universe does its part. It'll devalidate the hell out of us. And we do our part, which is being true to being the total idiot that we are. Thank you.